Chair's now pleased to recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. LaMalfa, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm pleased that we're hearing this key measure today, one that will help with the development of surface storage projects across the West, including in my own region of California, which has a failure to adequately update our water supply system. It's had disastrous consequences for everyone, but especially so for our agricultural economy. Hundreds of thousands of acres of the most productive land in the world lies fallow. Thousands of jobs have disappeared, increasing to disproportionate amounts of unemployment, especially in Central California. Our state's economy is experiencing billions of dollars in losses. A water supply system built for 20 million people now serves close to 40. And this problem will only be exacerbated in coming years. However, we know how to address this problem, increase the state's water supply, largely by contracting new water storage facilities. We also know the best locations for these facilities where we get the greatest return on investment. That's why I've sponsored my own bill, H.R. 4300, to accelerate and finally complete the study of Sites Reservoir in Colusa and Glenn County. This project alone could generate enough water for millions of Californians, help supply agriculture, as well as provide environmental benefits in the Sacramento River and the Delta. The state legislature even recently supported a bond which could fund much of this project, and we know that private funds also would become available. However, after spending over a decade and over $150 million in state and federal funds, the study of this project has still not been finalized. Chairman Hastings' bill takes a similar approach to H.R. 4300, creating benchmarks for completion of storage projects like Sites Reservoir and using a framework that of the recent Water Resources Bill to authorize projects. This measure will allow us to move forward with desperately needed projects like Sites, filling a gap in California's water supply that will only continue to grow if we don't take action. I'm pleased the committee and Chairman Hastings are taking leadership on this issue and look forward to moving this measure forward. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I look forward to making an introduction later on the panel. Appreciate it.
Mr. LaMalfa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's interesting, the whole spectrum of this debate here where, as was mentioned, $150 studying Sites Reservoir where the entirety of Shasta Dam was conceived, permitted, and built for $120. And yet we hear in this committee room things about holding government accountable, and the cost of doing that with oversight is unaffordable. But that's not for this committee today. But also yesterday in discussion that California is in a drought situation, and that naturally you have less rain, you're going to have less water available. But if water is stored, you get through those drought periods longer, the more basins you have water stored in. So I guess it causes the question of, is this drought purely just a natural drought, or is it exacerbated and made exponentially worse by inaction, federal regulations, lawsuits, things of that nature that prevent mankind from doing what it has done in the past, building various sizes of projects, or desal, things of that nature. Please, Mr. Sutton, Mr. Keppen.
Well, we've gotten through similar droughts like this. Dry hydrology is predictable. This is a predictable and preventable crisis. The problem is we've taken our existing infrastructure and strangled it to the point that where we used to have, when you had full reservoirs, you could plan on 3 years, being able to serve 3 years of water through a dry period, even into 4 years. At this point, we have competing biological opinions, one saying you have to hold water in the reservoir for a cold water pool, one saying you have to release it for delta smelt, competing against each other, draining these reservoirs every year and providing us no carryover for these types of situations. And at the same time, the population has grown, the demand has grown, and we've neglected to invest in new resources to make up for that lost utility. In fact, in Central Valley Project Improvement Act 3408, Section 3408J requires that we look to find ways to replace those lost resources. We have made no progress in that regard.
And I'll add too, I guess your question is, we see a lot of coverage about this, and especially in papers and media outlets outside of California, saying, Mother Nature and nature is driving this, and there's no doubt about it. The drought is driven by nature. But you just got to look back over the last 2 years. The reservoirs in California were brim full 2 years ago. And Jeff may have specific numbers as far as how it relates to CVP, but we're down. We've let a lot of that water go. to meet the requirements of biological opinion. And when you look at how the fish that are targeted by these flows have benefited, I'm not seeing it. I mean, there's lots of things that are affecting these fish, but it seems like the fishery agencies are focusing on flow primarily. And that's flow comes out of stored water, which a long time ago was developed to benefit, M&I and agricultural uses in California. When you look at the fish that are being targeted, smelt and salmon, the populations of the last 10 years have actually declined, while the predators of those fish have increased. I've got charts that show that. I'm putting together a journal article right now that has these charts in it. So I'm not saying that we're going to need more flow to make that turn around. It suggests that there's something other than flows alone that are affecting these fish populations, but right now the agencies seem to be focusing primarily on using stored water to meet flow objectives for the perceived benefit of fish.
Then how come our agencies aren't helping us to develop more water so we have the water supply for flows as well as everybody else? Isn't that where really the hang-up is? We know that occasionally we're going to have low rainfall years, drought periods. We know that we have need for people. We know we have need for fish. So does it really come back to this is all nature drought, or is man-made drought by exacerbating the non-development of new storage for an increasing population and an increasing biological need?
Well, I agree with your latter assessment there, and it's not just our inability to develop new storage or ineffectiveness in developing new storage and new conveyance facilities, but it's also the manner in which some of these regulations are being applied by the agencies.
Such as
releasing water downstream for the perceived benefit of fish with no perceived benefit
when
to
you
the
don't
fish.
really see the benefit. Yes, sir. Okay. Ms. Sutton, anything follow up on that?
No, I would echo Mr. Keppen's statement.
Yeah, okay. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.